Hey guys, what's up? West Virginia DIY guy here. It's been about 3 years since I've been able to film down in the shop. Me and my wife decided to have a couple kids and that ate up a lot of time. So now I'm back able to get into the shop and start working on some projects again. This first project back in the shop is going to be a few live edge shelves. I was given some wood and I thought it looked really rough when I got it, but since then I've run some through the planer and there's some wormholes through it that look really pretty when they're finished. So I've got some 1¼ inch cherry and some 1 inch walnut that I'm going to start with, and we'll see how it turns out. I'm going to run that through the planer, get it set, and then we'll get out some power carving tools and really clean up those edges and get things looking good. So here's the cherry and walnut I was talking about. This walnut piece has got some rot on the side. We'll have to see how that turns out. That may come right off with the planer, and I might be able to get it down to where it looks nice, but right now it looks pretty rough. We'll see how that goes. This piece of cherry here has got this piece that'll just peel off and leave that exposed live edge side there. I think that's going to be really pretty. And as you can see, some of these wormholes here, those show up even better after you run it through the planer a couple times. I think these are going to turn out really pretty, and I can't wait to get them through the planer and find out. Alright guys, so I got that through the planer, and I tore off that piece of sapwood that was on the front there. I'm actually going to take a screwdriver to the rest and try to pry off some more of that sapwood, because it's just so pretty underneath that, and it gives this random edge on the front that I can clean up with a sander or a steel wire brush, and it looks really nice when it's done. Those of you that saw the planer and thought that I was crazy for not running that across the joiner first, this is not going to be glued up to anything. It's just going to be some invisible shelf hangers on the back of it. So it's not something that I think needs to be run across the joiner first and then the planer, or using a planer sled or anything like that. It's just something that I can smooth off the edge and then I'm going to take a sander to it. So I don't think it's that important. Alright, I've knocked all that sapwood off the front of this, and it looks pretty rough right now. You can see a lot of the lines where I took the screwdriver to it. I was afraid the chisel was just going to cut too much into the wood, but I mean, this did just as much damage using a screwdriver. So it's rough right now, it really is, but once I take the steel wire brush to it and a sander to it, I think it's going to clean it right up. Right now it looks pretty rough, but that's kind of what I was going for. We'll see how it turns out. Alright, so you can see it's starting to look a little smoother here now. I started with my carbide cup wheel on the angle grinder, and that really took off most of the rough stuff. Then I transitioned to a flap disc, and as you can see I have a Harbor Freight grinder there, and it's not variable speed. It's not the best grinder out there, so it tends to burn the wood a lot with that flap disc on there. So now that I've got most of those hard edges knocked down, that the cup wheel started and we're just naturally there, I'm going to transition to my orbital sander with a 80 grit pad on there, and then I'll go to a 120 and the 220, and should be able to get this thing looking pretty smooth and pretty nice. This has turned out really nice now that I'm starting to wrap up on some of the sanding. As you can see, this is an 8-foot piece of wood, and nobody has room for an 8-foot shelf in their house. That's crazy talk. So what I'm going to do is cut this in half. It's actually 8'4", so I'm going to make it 2 4-foot lengths, I think, and I'll lose a little bit in the middle. You can see there where it starts to get a little thin where I took out so much in the middle there. That is not much space to put anything for a shelf. So I'm going to lose about 4 inches in the middle there. That doesn't bother me a bit though. That's not really usable space, and I should be able to turn that into something nice and pretty on the ends. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this into 2 4-foot lengths now. Alright, went ahead and cut it down to 4 feet. I have taken the sander to it and really cleaned up, got all these tunnels and everything looking really nice here. What I'm going to do next is take it over to the jointer and run it across and clean up this back edge. It's still rough sawn, so that needs to be run across the jointer and squared up so it's ready to finish. One other thing I did to these tunnels is I took a steel wire brush to them and cleaned out all the stuff that's inside there. Looks like sawdust. My understanding is, these bugs are chewing through this. They're inside the wood. So as it goes in one end, it comes out the other and just fills in the tunnel behind them. Here they are, the finished product for tonight. Tomorrow I'll come back down and drill the holes. I've got a jig for the drill press that I use to drill holes into the back of each shelf, and I'll be able to use these invisible hangers to hang them without anything showing underneath. They turned out beautiful, all sanded. Those wormholes really shining. Alright, the next step is going to be to go ahead and drill the holes in the back of these shelves so I can put them on the invisible hangers that I'm going to be using. The shelves are 48 inches long. I want the supports to be centered in the middle, so I'm going to go ahead and drill a hole at 16 inches and 32 inches into the back. I'll center that up in the back. I'll go ahead and got my tape measure out here, right over here, so I'm sure I've got it. By separating these by 16 inches, they will line up perfectly in the studs in the wall. So whoever purchases these, chances are the studs in their house are going to be 16 inches apart. If you're going to put any kind of substantial amount of weight on these, you want to be able to screw them into a stud. So I'll go ahead and separate these by 16 inches and we can go from there. Now that I've got these marked, I'm going to go ahead and go over to the drill press and set up my jig. Okay, this is the jig that I use on the drill press. You can see I've already got it sort of set up here. This is a highly scientific jig. Just got a couple 2x4s screwed together here at a 90-degree angle. Then I put another 2x4 in the front, clamp everything together once it's lined up perfectly, and it holds it perfectly straight for me to be able to drill with the drill press. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that everything is level here. And to do that, I use my 4-foot level. I could probably get by with 2-foot, but I've just always used my 4 for this. So I'm going to continue doing so. Once I get that set up perfectly level, I go ahead and I tighten these clamps in the front here. Double check, and we're perfectly level there. So that is going to create a good solid start for my drill press to go down there, and I'll be able to get most of the way drilled into this. I need these holes to be 4 inches deep. My drill press doesn't have quite that much movement, it's just 3.5 inch. So once I get the hole drilled here to 3.5, I'll go over to my bench vise and be able to drill it the rest of the way with the hand drill. Okay, I'm set up to drill here at the bench vise. So to set my depth on the drill, what I did was held the mount to the back side of the drill bit there, and I wanted to just barely clear that because I am going to chisel out the back of this shelf with a chisel to so that it'll be flush mounted to the wall. So by doing that and just making it just a fuzz over, maybe a 1/16 over at the end there, that will give me plenty of room to work with there. I don't have to worry about it bottoming out in the bottom and not being able to flush mount. So that should get us set. There we go. Alright, I'm using these Bessie multi-purpose vise drills here. They are sort of a rubbery plastic material, better than the metal. So I can clamp down on a piece of wood and it doesn't mar up the surface of the wood. This is not a sponsored video or anything, but these are great for not messing up the wood when you're ready to drill. So now that I'm ready to go, I've already got my hole most of the way drilled from the drill press. This will just get me the rest of the way. So I go ahead and put the drill bit in there so I don't mar up the end, and I'll go from there. To mark where I need to chisel, I just drop the mount down in there, trace around it with the pencil, and that's what I need to follow with the chisels. So I didn't realize until I finished chiseling all 4 holes that my camera, which I thought had a really cool aerial view there, hadn't tightened the tripod enough and the camera fell. So sorry there's no footage of that. Basically what I did was traced the outside edge with a 1-inch chisel and then the ends with a 3/8 chisel. Excuse me. Then I went back through and just chiseled out the middle. Worked at it for a while. The one has a knot in the middle of it, and let me tell you, that took a while. That was a pain in the butt. But it's done now. They turned out pretty good, so now I'm ready to do my final 220 grit sanding, and it'll be ready for stain. Alright, so I'm done sanding. This is silky smooth, but something that I want to do before I put stain on there is just go over it with a damp rag. This is just a shop towel. Go over with a damp rag and raise that grain up in the grain so that after I stain it, the stain doesn't raise that grain. And it'll still be this silky smooth when I'm completely done. So I'm just going to go over it real quick, this shop towel. I'm not trying to get in every little nook and cranny, just the majority of the surface here. If I just dampen that for a second, let it dry, which it does in like 5 seconds. I mean, you can see it's already drying at the other end by the time I finish this one. That brings up the grain, and I can feel it already. It's just the slightest bit rough. And maybe this is a little bit of perfectionist, whatever, but I think that it makes for a much nicer finished product when you don't have to worry about that grain standing up. I chose to go with a red oak stain on this cherry. I think it really brings out the color and the grain pattern in the wood. I've already got a coat of stain on these, obviously. I went ahead and did the bottom and the sides. I like to do it that way so that if I flip it over to do the other side and something happens and I scuff it or scratch it on the bottom, it's not going to scratch the main surface that people see. I just feel like it's a little bit safer to finish the wood this way. Okay, with everything sanded and the dust blown off, I'm ready to get back to staining. So I didn't video staining the bottom side, but I do want to cover it because of all these wormholes. With the wormholes, normally I would put stain on with a cotton cloth. But because of all these wormholes, I'm going to use a foam brush. Because I can absorb so much more stain and really just dab it down into all of the grooves, it makes it for a much easier application and much better looking finish. So I'm going to just show you how I do that now. I like to put a heavy coat of stain on there just so I know that it's completely saturated. I let it set for about 5 minutes and then I go back over and wipe off. You can see the difference between the two. As I wipe it off, it just sort of works it in farther into the grain and then wipes off the excess at the same time so it doesn't dry and become gummy. Now I'm ready to finish these shelves up with some polyurethane. I'll be using Minwax fast drying polyurethane in a clear satin finish. By using the spray, I feel like I can get a more even finish that just looks better in the end. Alright guys, this is the finished product. This is after the polyurethane has had time to cure. Beautiful, smooth, finished edge here. They just turned out wonderful. They are a couple of beautiful shelves here. They're going to make somebody really happy. These are going to be sold. So I think these turned out wonderful. And hopefully this video has been instructional enough that you feel like you can take this on and do a project like this of your own. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. And until next time, take care and God bless.